go of everything.
So we spent a few lessons basically just kind of blending our values to really bring attention to these different forms that we've exaggerated, these different characteristics that we've pushed to a certain extreme. So things like the nose, the eyes, those are going to be some dominant characteristics for this caricature. And then of course the ears and the cheekbones and just other attributes of the head. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time just kind of sharing with you my process on doing that. In between lessons, I kind of cleaned up edges and just kind of polished up a few little areas here and there, mainly just with the bust, just kind of sharpening that up a little bit. But again, I didn't get too overly detailed with it because I want to keep the focus here on the head. So we've got a new layer here, which I've created entitled Wrinkles. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. And I'd like to go ahead and start with the eyes. We haven't touched the eyebrows yet. We're going to save that for another lesson following the hair. So again, we want to look at our reference images here. And you can see he's got some little wrinkles on the bags of his eyes. So I kind of want to start with that. Okay. So I'll just kind of sample starting with just kind of some, like a darker value right there. And I'm still just using just a hard round brush with transfer check marked in the brush panel. So what I'm doing is just kind of looking at our image over here, and I'm referencing that and looking at some of those little wrinkles that he has under his eyes. And I'm kind of starting to just faintly work those in. Okay. And again, I think once we start working in these little details like this over all of these main forms that we've kind of defined, you'll really start to see just the essence of the caricature start to bloom. It's these little details that now start to take a lot of that big information and it starts to kind of pull it together. So this is where it starts to get really exciting for me in seeing these little bits and pieces start to come together. And that's kind of why I mentioned how I don't really like to do all this little fine detail to start out with, focusing on one area and then moving to the next. Just because it doesn't allow me to really see everything come together holistically. So right now what I'm doing is I'm bringing in a little bit of a highlight in there too to kind of make some of those little folds, if that's what you want to call them as well. Some of those little wrinkles, overlapping skin might be more appropriate, to kind of feel like they're raised up so that it doesn't feel flat. Okay? Because if you just draw some lines in there, then it's still going to feel flat. It'll just feel like just flat lines on skin. And so you still want to think about kind of what we've been doing basically, just on a smaller scale. So it's just we're rendering just smaller details now and just kind of polishing them. And then again, this is another situation where you really want to zoom out to kind of see how things are looking, because it may not be quite kosher to what you want. Again, I say this in a lot of my courses actually, that you know, working digitally is fun. You can get really detailed, zoom in really tight, but you can also become kind of tunnel visioned if you spend too much time on one area without taking a step back, kind of a virtual step back, if you will, to kind of see just how everything is coming together. And as I do this, one thing I'll notice is that maybe these values in here are getting a little too dark. I don't want them to feel like they're chiseled in. I still want it to feel like, you know, soft tissue. So that, you know, that's just kind of another thing that I'm thinking about and focusing on. Okay. But so far, I'm liking just kind of where we're headed. Kind of looking at just some other little wrinkles that he has off to kind of the side, kind of like some crow's feet, I believe is what you would call that. So I'm kind of starting to kind I'll work that in. And again, I'm just kind of thinking about the shadows. I kind of work them in very lightly, and then we kind of build upon them over and over as needed. And he's kind of got some little wrinkles. You can't really see it right there, but I noticed on this one here, he's got a few little wrinkles that are kind of coming up off of the hood of the eye. I'm kind of working those in there. Kind of pulling down some of this part right here to make it kind of feel like you got some deviations right there. That's feeling pretty good. And already, if we make a comparison, I feel like we're really starting to push that caricature just by adding these little bitty details. I think it really is adding a lot. Kind of, again, just kind of focusing just on this eye right now. In our next lesson, we're going to jump over to the opposite eye, and we'll do the same thing. But I'll kind of start to work down. I notice he's got like a little line kind of coming down, just kind of right there. And again, I'm thinking about that secondary light source. So, you know, I want to think about if that's kind of a groove in the skin, you know, you want to think about, well, how does the lighting affect that? So kind of working something in like that. And again, these are images that I'm just referencing. I'm not making the wrinkles look exactly 100% like what you see in the images. It's just something to pull into our rendition of this person. Again, we're creating a caricature, not a accurate portrait. So keep that in mind. I think that's important to think about as well when you are doing something like this. Just kind of getting a few of those wrinkles in there. All right, very cool. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pick up in our next lesson. We'll continue on working in some wrinkles. We'll kind of focus over here on